Welcome back to the channel. All right, I finished up the Crucible. I gotta say, I mean it. I think this was literally perfect content. We're gonna open up both those reunion crystals. Not the Titan today. We're gonna do that tomorrow when the crystal changes over. And then once that's done, I'm gonna give a lot of very positive feedback. Make sure you watch that too, and then list your own feedback in the comments. We'll make sure we do our best to make sure Kabam sees this, because I want this content. I want it more. I want more of this. This was fantastic. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so I was actually on a work trip when I started the Crucible, which is, I gotta say, part of why I loved it. Not because I could do it while I was working, but because of how accessible it is. Like I said, at the end of this, we will talk about all of that. But I finished this off. I know there's a ton of guides out there. I know there's a ton of write-ups and all that stuff. If enough people are like, hey, we wanna know your run, you know, maybe I'll link them in the description or something like that. But I used mainly basically Eggotron's guide. I configured it to myself. It was great. Now, just so you know, I really want to get Punisher 2099. Now, I do think I'd want him awakened. He's my most wanted. I do think they're all good. I do think they all have uses. I think he's just the one I would use the most in the modes I play. And then honestly, the ones I want the least are Misty and then Immortal Hulk. They're very good. Misty's really good too. Like, I know Misty K, great player. Really excited about having Misty. This is just not who I wanted for the way and the modes and the things I'm doing in game. It is what it is. Like I said, I was voicing that over. Now we're gonna live open my second crystal. All right, now it's time to open up that second crystal. We've got an opportunity to make up for it, right? If I did awaken Hulk, it might be enough to make me be like, all right, I'll at least take him to rank 2. I mean, he is a very powerful champion. All these champions are good. I want to make that very, very clear. I just think Punisher 29 is why I've talked about it in so many different videos and things, would go right into my Battleground stack. I'd be used quite a bit. If I ever return to Tier 1 War, I could see him being used there as well. And questing, great quester too. Great champion. Like I really do want him the most out of all of this. So, and then I would awaken him with the selector if I could. So hopefully I get him. Hopefully I get him here. And it's hard when it comes down to one. It's difficult. It's difficult. Let's see what we get. Let's see what we get. Okay. Like I said, I mean, Misty K, designer, extraordinaire, thumbnails and everything, that runs a fantastic channel. Is extremely excited about getting Misty Knight. She's not for me, but you know, I mean, you can do a lot of things. The damage is pretty good and stuff like that. But man, that is just not. That is not what I wanted. That is not what I wanted. But I will stay. I will stay with this. I will stay confident in saying this was absolutely fantastic, phenomenal content. And I have to say, what just happened and the fact that I still feel great about Crucible leads me even more. I'm even more confident that this was fantastic, fantastic content. Let's go ahead and talk about it. All right, now I'm going to start off with it. You just saw me get 2 crystals that, like, they were just not who I wanted. Good champions, but not who I wanted. I don't even know if I'm going to use them. And I still feel like this was great content. And so I think we need to start off with the rewards. And it's like, well, how, like, why, right? Because I did, and we talked about this on my Discord server, and some folks were even like, I didn't like my pulls. And I'm not trying to say they're wrong. I'm saying why I thought this was phenomenal is I'm pretty much an in-game player, right? I've done Tier 1 War, I've been top 3, I've finished in Celestial 6 or whatever it is in Battlegrounds. When I push, I can get back there. But I tend not to, because I don't want to ride that cycle of ups and downs of RNG and all of that stuff. And even still, and I usually wail out on the big holidays, and even still, I'm like, I have a Titan Crystal, I have a 2-3 gem. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. And you know, if the crystal had gone my way, I'd be sitting here with the Punisher 29, who I would be very much considering taking to directly rank 3. Now, I want to talk this in relationship to a couple of the nodes, because there's another thing I want to talk about is like the difficulty of it. And there were times I want to find someone a little further behind. There were times where a few people, and again, and I want to make this very clear. I asked people. This wasn't like people just came in and were like, yay, although there was a lot of positivity on my server, but no one came and just started being super negative out of nowhere for no reason. I asked for opinions. And one of the few negatives that was said by a couple of like incredibly high skill, like we're talking high Celestial, Tier 1, top 3 players, was like, it was a little easy. And a vast majority of people were like, no, it felt about right. It was really fun. And some people said like it was a little hard. And I think this relates to the rewards. And I'm going to tie this together. Is if it was a little easy And I have to say, like, I didn't find it easy, but I found it enjoyable and more accessible. I still got to walk away with minimal effort with a rank 3 champion, which is the pinnacle of rank ups right now. There is nothing higher in the game right now. And a Titan Crystal. And obviously, because I'm waiting, you can tell I'm not overjoyed about the Titan pool at the moment, but I will admit it also is maybe one of the highest premium items that Kabam has when they go and they sell things. So for what some people are claiming to be easy, they still were very, very, very significantly, lots of varies, rewarded, and still got something that will definitely benefit their account. I don't care who you are, biggest whale in the world, a new rank 3 benefits your account. This wasn't like a rank 5 6-star gem or some like ascension dust. This was a generic 2-3. And then Titan, even if you don't think the pool's that great, and I happen to be one where I'm like, I mean, it's good, don't get me wrong, but it's not what I would want or hope it would be. I still have a chance to pull some champions I will be very excited if I get. In fact, I'm tempted to do it right now. It's been really hard to wait. This morning I was like, I'm not that excited, but I'm going to wait, and I'm excited about that. Now, so for me, the difficulty of it is like in-game players could still do it. We're very richly rewarded. And then on the other side, let's say this was very difficult for you, and there was a couple players from a Discord server who were like, this is going to be difficult for me. And I think that's okay too, right? Like, one piece of content can't be for everyone, but here's one that seems to be hitting a pretty wide net of players. That's pretty awesome, right? Kabam, like, return on your investment as far as the amount of time you put into this and the amount of players that can access this is seeming pretty good. And if it's not a new player, brand new player's not doing this, but if it's someone who's not at that tippy top in-game, all that stuff, and this is a little bit more difficult for them, they have to spend more items and they're getting out of it and things like that, then that means the rewards were even more worthwhile, and they just got 2 and possibly a third 7-star when this is all said and done, plus the Titan, plus the 2-3. This will significantly upgrade their account. Even the champions I just pulled, if you have a smaller account, you're going to find uses for them. Now, if you don't like them, that's fine, but they are good champions. These are champions that are on my tier list. And remember, on my tier list, we only rank champions that are good, that are usable. So this is hitting in-game, all that, still getting richly rewarded. And then, what do you want to call it? Like moderate? Let's call it like moderate. Not brand new players, obviously, probably, you know, that sort of thing. But they can do this, and they're going to be very richly rewarded. Now, I'm intentionally pulling up the nodes because I had like forgotten. Act 7 was so long ago. I had forgotten how simple these nodes feel. Now, I know that might feel silly when I'm going over 3, but look at that. Remove aggressive, right? You can read that pretty fast. Powerful from afar, that's only 3 lines. 3 lines in-game content for Kabam, like for MCoC. That is wild. And they're above crisis of opportunity. Like, I'm not counting the health and champion boot. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Add all of those you want, Kabam. This right here. You know, I was on a work trip, so I had some time in between meetings. I'd have 20-minute downtime between this and that. It was like, you know what? I'm going to knock out 2, 3, 4, 5 fights, depending on how quick they were. And I didn't have to spend 10 minutes thinking about, you know, how's this node going to interact and how's that. And the nodes were still challenging. You had these as boss fights. I just loved it. I loved, there's some complexity here. There's some challenge here. But the simplicity of it, it was so incredibly refreshing. It didn't feel over manufactured. It didn't feel like if, ands, or buts sort of statements every single time. And I absolutely loved it. And it was also an example for me of how to make, you know, you had Hitmonkey. Hitmonkey, I died to Hitmonkey. I'm not gonna be able to find him. But that's a pretty tough defender, right? Things can go wrong. He can kill you out of nowhere. But if you made a couple mistakes, I think he had Lazarus, if I remember correctly, you died. And that's a great example, and that's something I've been asking for. I've been talking about where you had a tough defender, like a 3 defender, and then nodes made them more difficult. Nodes gave you the opportunity to make them a 5 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5 or whatever number system that we're using. But, you know, Kabam seems to use a 1 out of 5. And I absolutely love that. And it was a great example of, here's a defender that a lot of your veterans know how to play. They know how to fight him. They can get him down. But if he keeps reviving, and Crit Monkey, right, is dangerous because the longer the fight goes, the more likely you are to make a mistake or get cornered or something like that. And sure enough, it happened to me. It didn't feel cheap. It didn't feel BS. I didn't need to read a manual to understand the node or the defender. It was just a strong defender with a nice node set without too many if, ands, or sorts of nodes on there. And I went and I had a great time. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the accessibility as far as time's concerned. Kabam. And again, for me, you knocked it out of the park. Like everyone knows, I love Tier 1 War, but what's hard for me is the weekends come around, I'm like, I want to be with my family. I want to be with my family. And so like, it's just not as accessible for me. It leads to frustration, so I've left Tier 1. I was on a work trip, which is when I'm my almost absolute busy, aside from when I'm on a vacation with my family, and I just want to like check out and be with my family. Still got to do this quest. I finished it Monday morning. I came home Sunday night, got home Monday morning, and I was like, I'm going to take 30 minutes and finish it off. Because I could just do it in bite size. And kabam, like, I hope this is clear. This is all a massive applause. Kudos. I'm asking for more. I want to say, great job. I know less people are going to watch this, right? But it just is what it is, and I'm still saying it, and I think someone's watching them. So, the fact, and you guys worked on the technology where if I was doing war and I needed those champions, I could use them. So I had to back out of Necropolis multiple times because I couldn't get through a path. I have a job, I have a family, I have responsibilities, just like a lot of the players do. And I was also in Tier 1 War, and then like I needed those champions to do the fights. Well, I didn't have that concern at all here. It being gone, made this such a delight to like venture into, to actually take the time and go over Egatron's like planner and look through the nodes and like take the time to write a list, because I wasn't having to worry about this champion or that champion, or do I rush through this? I actually read the nodes. I know it sounds so simple, but I hope you can see from my body language and my voice, it's very, very genuine in this. I thought it was fantastic. I loved it. Please do more of this. Do more of this. Another thing that I thought was just so amazing was, when Battlegrounds first came out, I was like, hey, what's so cool is, in war, you get to use 3 champions. In questing, you use 5, but not really. You use 1 now, the way questing has been. But in Battlegrounds, you got to use 30 champions. And it's like, cool, you're giving us a place to use so many of the champions. We've gone out and opened crystals and ranked up and all that stuff. And, we'll talk about Battlegrounds in a separate video. I think it's time for it to maybe evolve a little bit. But what this did, this gave me a chance to use like my total in-game roster. All the way from 5-star Magic to my rank 3 champions. I used Nimrod to take out that Namor, I haven't even taken Nimrod to rank 5 as a 6-star. Like, the variety of champions I use from a 5-star maxed out Ascended Magic all the way to rank 3 champions. I never used Hercules, who I do enjoy using. And so I got to use probably 45 champions or something like that over the course of this. And if I had really wanted to max it out, I'm sure I could have gotten to 60. I never felt like I was paying the price for not using the optimal champion, right? Like, one of the biggest like things I see from YouTubers in the community, I try my best not to engage in it, but I understand it can get to people, is this whole like, this champion's bad or whatever, and people on our Discord server are about to be like, they'll be like, oh, this champion's mid, and then a bunch of YouTubers are like, they write a title as if they're like they've kidnapped someone and it's a ransom letter, right? The caps and the lowercase, and it's like this combative thing back and forth on like, you got to always use the most optimal or whatever. And this just felt completely, I think the word is devoid of that whole framing of everything. And I loved it. It gave the space for me, like I said, to use my Nimrod. I can't think, I should have written this down, but I use Sorcerer Supreme. I love using Sorcerer Supreme. I think she's so much fun. But I also enjoy being semi-competitive in Battlegrounds. And outside the meta where she was a tactic attacker, she's just too slow. Does that make her a bad champion? Absolutely not. And that's why we have her rated the way we do in our general tier list. And that's why it's configurable. You can just remove Battlegrounds and she moves right up because she's great. But when the modes were being given, when the quests were being given, when war and battlegrounds are like the ever-present, always constant in-game ways of earning rewards, you're asking us, Kabam, to pay a price for ranking up Sorcerer Supreme and using Sorcerer Supreme over America Chavez, right? And this felt completely, again, I'm gonna use the word devoid. And if it's the wrong word, have fun, let's laugh about it. I'll laugh about it. Of that whole paradigm, that whole framing. So please do more of this, because we can tell from 2024 champions, I think they're good. I'm not knocking them. But they are less immediately offensively potent, as particularly in battlegrounds, than 2023 was. I can't argue that. I think that's a fact. I don't think it's opinion, I think that's a fact. Opinion is, are they good or not? I think they're very good. I think they're very good. I think it's just a day in and day out, players aren't getting as many places to feel like they've ranked up optimal champions or the most optimal. And they're being asked to basically like pay a pseudo price, let's put it, on ranking them up instead, because they enjoy using them. They're still very good champions, but they know going into battlegrounds or whatever, that someone's got rank 3 Silk, I ranked up rank 3 Spider-Man 20 or whatever, Spider-Punk. If we both play perfectly, my opponent's going to win. And this was so amazing because none of that existed. You could just go in and you had to play well. And yeah, there were fights where I used the Silk and she dominated it, but I only used her once. I just do this more, and I think it will open up more room for positive receptions to champions who aren't massive damage dealers right away. They build up a little bit, they ramp a little bit in a fight, they've got great control. Whatever it is, this gave them a place to shine, and people, I think, feel just like totally unshackled in using them. There was no like, well, if I had used this champion, maybe I'd have been a bit better off. It was phenomenal. I loved it. I didn't see conversations about it being more positive. There was less, your champion's kind of mid, bro, here's why they suck. And more like, yeah, that could actually work. That's really cool. I'm gonna try doing this with this champion too. I just completely loved it. And then last but not least, I can see how long this video is taking, and it wasn't my intention to do a massive one, although please do write your suggestions and comments in there. Like I said, I believe Kabam does at least take a look at these. Is, moving forward, right? I think one of the things we heard, this, if I'm making it up, I apologize, but I believe we heard this was like, this didn't take as much design time because it was just taking boss fights and plopping them in, maybe tune up the attack or health a bit, the numers. Man, I'm misspeaking like crazy. I'm going to leave that in. But the health numbers, right? And then obviously this new tech, but you now have the tech. It works. You've seen it. And I was like, what about this or what about that? And other people jumped in. I'm not going to say their names. I don't know if they want to be quoted in the video. And it was like, just do this for that day. Do this with the variants. Do this with the EQ bosses. You spend so many human hours building these really cool fights. Just reuse them. You can see that we, the community, are like, hey, that's really cool. We love it. And the rewards, like these rewards, in my opinion, were very, very good. Can be just that. If a player's gonna find it easy, then just give them like one thing that's like, no, that's cool. That's gonna help my account. In this case, you give them a Titan and a 2-3. I feel like I'm walking away. I had a tremendous amount of fun, and I just got richly rewarded. Like, can you imagine if that was in an Odin offer? I would have been like, yes. But instead of me paying an Odin to get this, to get a Titan and a 2-3, I just got to have a lot of fun for 6 hours. And use my roster, which made it even more cool that I, spent all these hard-earned resources ranking up a variety of champions. Like, this is such ultimate win. Kabam, like when you go through this, I really hope you look at this from a like, where players engaged in having fun a point. I hope you see tremendous return on your investment in this. And I think there's just so many nodes, so many fights you've built. I mean, shoot, you could probably even go back to like, I don't know, early act fights, throw a couple nodes on them. They don't have to be like 6 and 7, 8 nodes. And you can just see, like I showed you, like 3 or 4. We're happy. We are really, really happy. Give us a place to use our champions. It doesn't need to be over complex. And I hate seeing it over complex because I know players really like that. I'm not looking to yuck their yum. There's a place and time for that. You want to challenge them too. I get it. This one just feels like an ultimate crowd pleaser. And I'll just leave it with an analogy, right? Like sometimes it's great to get a filet mignon, right? With a beautiful like cab or something like that. Like, trust me, I get it too. But more often than not, I just want a Coors Light and a burger because it tastes good. And this was that. I love it. Please do more. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.